Hello again. Hi, how are you girls? This is the Your Turn book. We have today reading comprehension. Okay, open the page 253. Okay, so we have to read. Let's start to read together. Books for Victory. As Carlos shivered on the snowy porch, he noticed a drooping banner in the front window. Happy New Year 1943, it said. Ha! They could have taken that down by now, he thought as he pressed the doorbell once more. Hurry up, he muttered. I am turning blue out here. Turning blue meaning that he is freezing, okay? As he waited for his neighbor to answer the door. Carlos blew on his hands to warm them, glancing at his wagon piled with books. He thought back to last year and the reason he was out here again collecting for the Victory Book campaign. So he has a wagon, like a little cart, and it has many books over it. So let's highlight the important parts in this part. We have here the character Carlos. He was shivering from cold, yes, on a snowy porch. He was ringing the bell of some neighbor, yes, and he's saying, hurry up, I'm turning blue out here, as he waited for his neighbor to answer the door. And Carlos blew on his hand to warm them. He looked at the wagon. What he was doing, he was like collecting books, okay? He has a wagon piled with books, and there is a campaign collecting for the Victory Book campaign. He's collecting the books. His brother Thomas, Thomas, so we have here another character, Thomas, had been in the army and stationed at a military camp across the country. Carlos had missed Thomas and looked forward to his letters. Carlos knew one of those letters by heart. There is nothing new to tell you, Thomas had written. So we learn from this part that Carlos missed his brother Thomas, who was joined the army, and looked forward to his letters. We still train and drill every day. When we are not training and drilling, there is not much to do. I wish I had something good to read. Carlos had felt bad for Thomas. What did his brother tell him? He told him, I wish I had something good to read, because we are training all the time, okay, and we don't have training, we don't have anything to do, so I wish I had something good to read. Carlos had felt bad for Thomas, so he felt bad for his brother. He wondered how he could help him. So here he thinks to help, how he could help his brother. The next day in morning assembly, Principal Ramirez told the students about the Victory Book campaign. So they made the Victory Book campaign all over Oregon and the rest of the country. People were collecting. So what were people doing? Collecting books to send to soldiers, sailors, and other fighting people in the war. So now we know that we are talking about the time of war, and they are trying to help the soldiers. Principal Ramirez added that the campaign needed volunteers. A volunteer is a person who works without money, and he wishes to help. As soon as he said that, hands shot up all over the auditorium. Everybody wanted to participate. Carlos had promised himself he would collect as many books as he possibly could, and during the following month he took his wagon throughout the neighborhood. At each house he explained the campaign and asked people to donate books. So what was his job? He went to the people and asked them to donate books. In its first year, the campaign had lasted from January to November. It had been an outstanding success. By the time it was over, people across the country had donated more than 11 million bucks. 11 million books. So they have donated many books for the soldiers to read. As Mrs. Wright opened the door, so we have here another character, Carlos was pulled out of the past and back to the present. Only a few seconds had passed, even though he'd been thinking of a period lasting several months. I know just why you are here, Mrs. Wright smiled. I looked all over the house and I have quite a large stack of books. What kind of books are you looking for this year? He said, we'd like fiction. Carlos answered, adventure stories, westerns, mysteries, and detective stories would be good. So these are the kinds of stories he's looking for. We also want non-fiction, and also non-fiction like scientific books. But I hear that those books should be published after 1935 so they will be up to date. Mrs. Wright, so we know now that they are at nearly 35, so we know that this is World War II they are talking about. Mrs. Wright pointed to a tall stack of books by the door. Good, I think these will be suitable then, he said. You know, I'm reading some new novels right now. When will you be by again? I'll be back in a few weeks, Carlos replied as he gathered up the stack of books. We'll be collecting for a couple more months. That's great, Mrs. Wright nodded. My daughter Grace will be home from college next weekend. So now Mrs. Wright is talking about her daughter. She's telling that her daughter is coming home from college next weekend. I'll ask her to go through her books and see what she'd like to donate. She will ask her daughter also to donate books. As he walked to his wagon, Carlos called back, that's terrific, Mrs. Wright. One of our slogans is give more books, give good books. So this is a slogan. What is a slogan? These are words to remember, clash words that will attract your attention when you read them. Give more books, give good books. I'm sure Grace's books will be good ones too. Thanks so much for these. Carlos and Mrs. Wright waved at each other. He set off for his next stop, the library. So where was he going? He was going now to the library. There volunteers would sort through what Carlos, so what would the volunteers do? The volunteers would sort out the books with other bought in. Then large collection centers would ship the books to people in military camps and overseas. He was still chilled, but Carlos felt proud. Chilled meaning that he felt so cold, but he was so proud. He was too young to join the army, like Thomas. Yes, but he couldn't work in a defense factory. He couldn't also work in a factory like his parents. So we know that his parents work in a factory. But by collecting books, he and his classmates were making a contribution. Best of all, they were helping his brother Thomas and others fighting for their country. So this was Carlos' way to help, to give a contribution in the war. He collected books and sent them for the soldiers. How does Carlos feel when he hears about the Victory Book campaign? Go back to the text and try to find out. What did he feel? Was he happy or sad or what? Yes, he was excited and ready to volunteer because he felt sad for his brother. Why does he feel that way? Why is he so excited? Because the campaign is a way he can help people who are fighting in the war. So what does Carlos learn from his experience? What might be the theme or message of this story? What is the theme of this story? Yes, everyone can make a contribution. Everyone can help during the war time. I hope you understand all that. If you have any questions, please tell me. Thank you so much for listening. Bye.